You're listening to Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran Podcast.
Now introducing your host of Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran, the one-man show, Brian Roof.
Hey, what's going on, friends and fam? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another interview, another great day. But before we get started, I would like to especially thank podcastguest.com for helping me find these amazing guests that I've been having on the show. They give me a whole list of different guests that are interested in coming on the podcast. So I want to appreciate them. And this is, in fact, how I found my next guest. And I'm super excited to have my next guest on, by the way. My next guest retired from being DEA, sorry about that, and law enforcement for over 28 years. He's here to talk all about that. And as well, he is the founder of Eagle 6 Training, and also the founder of a nonprofit, Only2mg. Here to talk all about it is Brian Townsend. What's going on, brother?
Hey, thanks, Brian. Happy to be here.
Hey, man, I'm having a great start. You can see I'm bumbling all over the way, but we're here, man. I'm super excited to have you on and get to hear all about your stories and all the things that you got going on. But before we get to hear about all the great things that you got going on today, let's get to know a little bit about you, where you started your life off and what led you into law enforcement.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in Northern Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. I had a father that was career Army and he retired out of Fort Belvoir right outside of D.C. there. And that's where we ended up after his military career and went to school there and finished high school there. And afterwards made a decision to leave Virginia, leave the East Coast and head to Missouri for college. I thought I heard a delay.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Or you had an echo maybe? You good?
Yeah, I'm good now. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. All right, so you ended up in Missouri.
Yeah,
which is odd, I guess, huh?
Yeah, people do ask all the time, why did I leave Virginia for Missouri? And I had no friends in Missouri. I knew no one there. My best friend in Virginia, his mom went to college where we chose to go to school many, many years before us, and she had recommended it. And I thought, what the heck? I needed a kind of a change in my life. I had great friends and family, but just wanted a restart in life at my young age of 18. And I went to Missouri and was a criminal justice major with the intentions of going into law enforcement.
Outstanding. That's cool. So you always had did you always have a thing for law enforcement, or what kind of actually led you in that direction?
Yeah, I saw the impact that drugs had on communities. The neighborhood I lived in, I saw what they did, and just really just couldn't stand it, and wanted to be part of the solution, part of how am I going to, make a difference and combat this. And so, yeah, I didn't know. I really didn't know what the DEA was at the time. I just, law enforcement was kind of a broad term. I thought maybe just police officer, but I wasn't really sure. I actually worked with a lady whose husband worked at the FBI Academy in Quantico, the Marine Corps base there, and she offered to get me a tour of the FBI facility through him, and of course, I accepted that, and I was with the FBI agent, and he was walking me around, and I saw some DEA. At that time, the DEA shared the academy with the FBI. Now they have their own. They still share the grounds there in some of the facilities, but now we have our own building and dorms and classrooms. But at the time, we didn't. So I saw this class of DEA guys walking by, and of course, I didn't say anything to the FBI agent, but I looked at those guys, and I said, that's what I want to do right there, and I didn't know how I was going to accomplish that. I really had no idea. I was in high school at the time, and interestingly enough, my guidance counselor actually told me I should not go to college because I was a very average student, and that college would be a waste of money my family. And
Oh,
of
man.
course, back in the late '80s, you could say things like that, and
Right. Yeah. Nowadays, that's like, woo, canceled.
exactly. So, but I had my mind focused on those goals, and again, I wasn't really clear on how I was going to make it all work, and somehow or another, the pieces just kind of fell together, and very fortunate for that. Went to school, did the criminal justice route. I got a couple degrees there. Went to grad school, got my master's degree, and then I went into to law enforcement. I was a police officer in Joplin, Missouri, for about 5 years, and what a great career that was. I really learned a lot, and I really think that gave me a solid foundation for the DEA, which what I ultimately wanted to do and would go to in 1999 after 5 years at Joplin. Great, like I said, great department, great city, but I had a little bit more focus on that goal of drug law enforcement, and had the opportunity to go to the DEA in 1999, and I did that for the next 23 years of my life, and I loved every day of it. It was a great career.
So now to be a DEA agent, and is it a selection? I mean, how do you actually get yourself and work your way into that?
Yeah, it's a long process. I mean, it's like almost any law enforcement agency. You're gonna go through several interviews. Polygraph examination, medical tests, physical fitness tests. If someone's interested in federal law enforcement, they need to set aside at least a year of their life to accomplish that. And I was pretty fortunate. It was about a 10-month period for me, which was pretty fast. But I probably 5 or 6 different cities for different parts of the test, or of the different phases of the test, to get accepted. But you start with a recruiter. You just go online, the DEA.gov, and you read the requirements, and you make contact with the recruiter in the division that you live in, and he or she will kind of help you and guide you on that journey. And as long as you keep on passing every phase, you'll eventually get hopefully a selection to come to Quantico and complete your basic agent training.
Wow, that's really cool. I do imagine that, to be DEA, there is a stringent background investigation. They want to see a long, lengthy commitment to what you've been doing, right? Because I mean, the last thing you want is a crooked DEA inside your, agency, because you guys are obviously put in charge and have a huge job, right? And so you don't need anybody in there faulting that or making, putting it in a bad direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So, they do the best they can to vet the folks and do very extensive background investigations. I think at the time they went back 10 or more years. I think normal background investigations like 7 years. Asking friends, families, neighbors.
Yeah.
You're really they're really diving into the weeds there, and unfortunately, some bad actors do get through all, whether it's DEA or all
Sure.
agencies, but I think the process it works, and it definitely it weeds out the folks who don't need to be in this profession.
Right, that's good. Now, kind of talk, more extensive about, actually what you guys ended up doing, and if you can talk about certain things, your more memorable moments and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I my first 10 years at DEA, where my first assignment was Little Rock, Arkansas. A great assignment. Maybe funny to me, but I remember in the academy, no one wanted to go to Little Rock. It was all the Arkansas jokes, and
right.
And and I'd gone to school in Missouri, but really I kind of avoided Arkansas as well, even though it was our southern border of Missouri, and not too far from where I was in Joplin. But man, what a pleasant surprise that was! Just a great location. I still have a lot of friends in Little Rock, and enjoy going back to visit them. And as a DA agent there, I mean, man, it was a very target-rich environment. We were working investigations involving dope from Texas and sources there, Arizona, California. I mean, our highway system, Interstate 40, Interstate 30, really, we saw a lot of traffickers from different parts of the country come through, and
South kind of come from our southern border.
Yeah, where sometimes you work in jurisdictions where you're used to kind of seeing a lot more of the southern border, the McAllen, Reynosa or Brownsville, Matamoros, some of the Gulf Cartel, the Zeta, some of those organizations, and or maybe it's just all Sinaloa cartel type stuff, like in your area in California. But it was just really good exposure. It was a great time. I immediately loved what I was doing. I couldn't believe they were paying me to come to work. I mean, and just a great experience. I worked some undercover. Actually had a really interesting case that if you watch A&E Undercover Caught on Tape, they're in season 1 right now, and episode 6 of this first season. The last 20 minutes is an operation that I did, and you'll see an interview of me and retelling that operation.
Oh man, I like those kind of things. Honestly, they always intrigue me. I'm one of those guys that watch like true crime and all those, the first 48.
Yeah,
I love all that stuff. It's always intrigued me. In an undercover world, man, that's always something that I thought would be pretty cool too. I imagine there's a whole level of stress there too, right? Like, because you're acting, and you could be freaking caught up and get caught in that, and it doesn't usually end well, right, for the undercover guy.
Yeah, it can be very dangerous. Absolutely. But I trusted my team. I trusted the pre-planning, the risk management, just the crisis management in general. I mean, that's one thing DEA does very, very well. I mean, we're used to being in very dangerous situations, and we try to mitigate those risks the best we can prior to any operations. Operational planning is key, and you develop trust in that process and the people that you're around. And I was very fortunate to work with some incredible men and women who I felt safe with. I mean, is it still a dangerous situation? Absolutely. But most undercover work is not long-term or it's usually you just kind of you fit that role and you drop in, you play that role, and then boom, you drop out and you're back to case agent or support agent, or whatever your role is in the investigation, and you go on. But and that's what most of the undercover work I did was just I dropped in, I did what I needed to do, and then we went from there. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to experience that part of the DEA and the drug trafficking world, and it was fun. It was a good experience, and now I have the opportunity to talk about it some more, and those are always good stories to tell. So
yeah, and I imagine so you probably, how long ago have you removed yourself and retired from it?
I retired in 2022, so
not too long ago. So you've been around for all the border stuff going on and things like that, right? I mean, have you seen an upscale and movement coming in, and going to kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So after 10 years in Little Rock, my next assignment was Corpus Christi, Texas, and the Southwest border. So
right,
yeah, great segment there.
Perfect. Boom.
I decided to go into management and got selected for a first line supervisor position in Corpus Christi. And at the time, we were considered a border office, even though geographically Corpus Christi is not on the border. But most of our work was being generated from seizures at the border. There was a lot of violence going on in places like Juarez, just south of El Paso, and in that part of the Texas border, and that shifted a lot of the drug trafficking further east into places like Reynosa and Matamoros. So that meant a lot of the trafficking was coming over the border right there into places like McAllen. And there's 2 major highways that come up from South Texas, Highway 77 and 281, and the number of seizures that were being made were, I mean, they really are mind blowing. When I first got there in 2009, my group alone of about 10 people had about 125 open case files, which is unheard of. I mean, it really is. And as an office, we were probably doing 300 to 400 a year.
That means these are open cases, right? They're,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And some of these are, kind of, clean up and put them together for prosecution the best we can. But our job is to further these investigations. Anyone can take a case and put the evidence in a locker and submit everything to the prosecutor. But we really need investigators. We need folks to put the pieces of the puzzle together and go after these traffickers and these organizations. And that's why, that's why we have the resources we do within the DEA and the federal government, so we can continue to build these cases. And that's what we really needed. And I tell you, when you have that many case files, you really have to pick and choose. Who are your most violent, your most organized, who are the
That's like prioritizing.
100%. So, but with that, I learned a lot about drug trafficking at that higher level. I mean, we had cases where, we had an organization that was moving 500 kilos of cocaine into the U.S. every single month.
Wow.
And that was, I don't want to say the norm, but a lot more common than you might think. So that was really neat, because even though I worked some really good trafficking organizations in Arkansas and other places, now is really kind of the tip of the spear almost, down in South Texas where we seized a car with 500 pounds of methamphetamine. It'd be like, all right, it wasn't, it was just
no big deal, I guess, right?
Exactly. I mean, so I learned a lot. I still have a lot of friends at Border Patrol, and we did a lot of work down there. And the border's a mess. I mean, I'm not a political guy. I'm really not, but it really is a mess. Yeah. I mean, historically, the Border Patrol does about 250 to 300,000 contacts in all of the border. That's Canada as well, every fiscal year. But the last few years, last year was over 2 million. So they go from 300,000 a year to over 2 million. And right now, this fiscal year, they're already over 1 million already.
Gosh, dang.
And the resources aren't catching up to to the volume of people. So, and what a lot of folks don't understand is, like, all these migrant lines, or whatever you want to call them, whatever the news is calling these folks today, it's all driven by these transnational criminal organizations. We call them drug cartels, and I know I call them that as well. But the reality is they're transnational criminal organizations. They're not just involved with drugs; they're involved with
sex trafficking, human trafficking. Yeah.
You got
all of it. Yep.
All of it. In fact, just the bringing folks over, smuggling across people across the border is $1 million, if not $1 billion business for the cartels. I mean, this is big money. So they love that we're fighting. They love that the Republicans and Democrats are fighting, and that there's so much craziness going on, because they know how to stretch our resources. They know that if they move folks in a particular area, that they can move drugs or money or any other types of criminal activity at other areas. And it's sad that that's what it's come to. I mean, we've been protecting our border since 1924, 100 years. I mean, that's older than both Trump and Biden, barely, but it's older. Right. And this is something that's been a bipartisan supported thing for 100 years in this country.
Yeah, as it should. It should never be a left or right thing. It should be a human people. We're protecting our own. I don't mind people coming here, right? But let's vet them out. Let's let them be here legally. Let's let them, be part of the where they're paying taxes, and they're also putting into the system, right?
Yeah.
Like, not just taking from the system, but also putting into it.
No, I agree. And I tell people that all the time. Immigration is a separate issue from border security.
Absolutely. Because honestly, my family came here from Sicily, right? Like, if I go down through it, but when they got here, it was so important to them to have a job here and to establish themselves and to build America. A lot of America was built on immigration and all that and stuff, so that we won't ever take away from that. I think people get it mixed up. Like, we don't want no one here. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
We want people here documented, because what we have here is we have people getting murdered. We have fentanyl going up the drugs, all kinds of things are going out the window. These were problems in the 80s. But when I was an 80s baby, my parents weren't like worried about the ice cream man giving me fentanyl in my ice cream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that wasn't a thing. So I
No,
mean, it's crazy how much our world has gotten so divisive over a very important thing. What it seems to me is maybe we've gotten sabotaged with so many other people here that they don't care that it gets closed and they want it to be open, and we don't have that protection anymore. And it's kind of getting scary. I don't think people realize that what's going to come in the next 2 to 3 years as they really open things up in these past few years, where it wasn't as I guess they weren't being as checked as much, and we don't have the resources, I think, to check it all. What you're saying too is we have that many open cases. That's how many are caught. For how many are caught, there's probably 3 to 5 more that didn't get caught. You know what I mean?
Right?
At least, right? So, I mean, people don't put a lot of that into, perspective, I think, sometimes.
Oh, I agree. And you can, whether it's drugs, whether it's the guns, anything. I mean, you look at the number of seizures across the United States. I mean, those are obviously past the border, and those are all up as well. So that also goes into how many are we not getting? I mean, how much fentanyl are we not getting in this? When you mentioned fentanyl, because we know the seizures are at record levels and the deaths are at record levels. So obviously, there's a lot more coming through the border, and now it's so divisive. And like I said, the few friends I have still down there, I mean, they're all pulling their hair out. They really are. It's
God bless
sad.
them. Yeah. But and this is when we start losing the for people wanting to go into these kind of jobs,
people.
right?
Yep.
Right. And then next thing you know, they have to start lowering standards and things like that to get people in, because not enough people want to even get in anymore. That's what they're even doing on the military side, right? The Navy has lowered their standards in such a way, like I think it became no diploma or something like that, or they don't have to graduate high school anymore. They don't have to. I forgot what they did, but I mean, these are things now because they're having record low people coming in and wanting to do these jobs. Same thing with law enforcement. As people are starting to hate law enforcement and starting to have a war on law enforcement, now people aren't wanting to go do these things, or there's a lot less of them. We're going to run into a level that we're going to be begging people to protect our country, protect our homes, protect our communities,
And that shift, that what people don't realize, that shift is actually going to create more problems. So, you look what happened, some of the things in law enforcement over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, unacceptable things, mistakes that, and criminal behavior for that matter, that some law enforcement officers did, even though it's 0.1
yes, right,
of the total population. It's
that
still
bad apple.
Yeah, it still unfortunately gives the perception that the entire profession is somehow corrupt. We know that's not true, or at least bright people know that's not true.
Sure, 100%.
But now we've attacked this profession just like we have the military and other professions, and you've lowered the standards because people don't want to get into the profession. So what does that mean when you lower the standards and you let people that you wouldn't let in 5 or 6 years ago in? What that means to me is we're going to see these incidents increase over the next 5 or 10 years. I hope I'm wrong. I hope these people with lower standards that we're allowing in aren't going to be criminals, aren't going to create, bad acts. But I suspect we're going to see more of those things on the evening news because, we've lowered them.
I'll give you a prime example because it happened here in where I live. As a matter of fact, I will not mention names, but definitely know we know the people that know the person that this happened to, right? So correctional officer working, I think he's almost maybe been in there 3 to 5 years now. Didn't really have any much experience. I know he worked at a gym or something before, but anyhow, he ended up getting into the correctional scene, and just recently he was on the drug task force. As a matter of fact, he was on the team. Guess what he was doing? Moving drugs. And he got ratted out by an inmate's girlfriend because something went wrong, right? So I mean, obviously he's going to be the fall guy. But just like you said, this is happening now in the prison system. And I can't really say whether it's because they lowered standards or not, but you're definitely going to run into issues, right? When you do start to lower the standards, no matter what. These guys they get offered a certain amount of money, more than what they're making at that 12-hour correctional job or whatever 15-hour job they're doing. And some guy slaps in like, hey, I'll give you $100,000 if you guys move this, and I mean, do it a couple times, and all of a sudden they're living life on the big home, see on the Facebook post they're in the Hawaii, they're and now all of a sudden you hear this story, you're like, ooh, where was this coming from? Living a little larger than maybe a correctional officer, but it is a thing, man. And even when it comes to the military, these guys are going to be getting kicked out while they're in there, right? Because they're going to still think they can do certain things that you cannot do when you make a commitment, when you raise, and take an oath. After that, you owe your oath to whoever you gave that oath to, right?
And there'll be consequences for the decisions you make that aren't lawful or ethical.
Yeah, and I mean, and sometimes you can become the example, right? We'll go ahead and throw the book at this guy, and hopefully everybody else around him is scared and wants to throw in,
And we see that more in law enforcement and the military, because we want folks to be the best in those professions, and when they do mess up, a lot of times prosecutors or people like, let's make them the example.
Yeah, and not only that, but guys that they thought wouldn't sell them out end up selling them out because they're getting cut deals, right? And so they'll sell your ass out for the deal, because now they're going to get less time, or maybe they get the slap on the wrist this time because they ultimately squealed the loudest and they gave up the most, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's I hope that we can get this all figured out, but I feel like we're moving in a direction. Once you start kind of going backwards, it's really hard to move yourself back forward again and establish ground. It's really hard.
It is.
Start getting these people in. You can't really boot them out unless you start documenting every problem they do. You're
right. The pendulum has shifted quite a bit, and to get that to shift too much, you gotta be careful, right? It shifts too much either way, and you're kind of in that danger zone.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. A lot of times when they start doing these laws or taking away certain things, and or giving this once you open up the Pandora's box, sometimes you can't really close it, and you don't know when you go to try to close it, you don't realize what has been created by allowing that to be open for so long.
Yeah,
and our border is one of those in particular Pandora's boxes, right? Like, we left it open. We it's always been since I can remember, we've always wanted to protect that border, right? Because we've known for a fact bad people to come through those especially the southern border, right? Because they're all about money over there. They're all about power and things like that. They could give a hoot about our feelings about how we feel about a situation, right? I mean, enough money, they'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and a lot of these bad actors are hiding behind the immigration, hiding behind a lot of the folks coming across the border that are the ones that we don't want, or the ones with the worst intentions are not even Hispanic. Some of them are, Chinese,
right? No, 100%.
Or others with,
yes,
with motives that are, are absolutely dangerous to this country and what we stand for, and they're hiding behind the immigration wall, which, like I said, is a separate issue, but it's a mess down there. It really, really is. I mean, I would invite anyone who doesn't think it's a mess to just spend a day at the border.
I even watched a video and a guy was literally interviewing all these people, just asking them, where are you from? Where are you from? Man, I mean, they were from everywhere. Nigeria, Pakistan, Iraq. I mean, I'm not kidding you. They were from every different, and a lot of them weren't even uh, countries that I would say that we get along with, or that I would say like us. You know, and some of these people that even come over don't even want to come over. They're being pushed by their people, right? It's this or you're gonna die here,
Yeah.
and we need you to go do X, Y, and Z while you're there over there. Matter of fact.
Yeah. It's a mess. That's
Yeah, 100%, man. I don't think you and I will solve it. uh,
unfortunately, I wish we could.
no kidding, man. I mean, I wish there was a quick solution, but obviously, even our government, who we all pay to make good decisions, can't figure it out, right? I mean, sometimes we look like a damn circus to, I think, the rest of the world. I would like to, you know, it's hard watching a lot of those debates and things they got going on. I'm like, oh man, try not to even get involved in that world because it can make you go crazy.
It can, and I think the world definitely considers us crazy.
Oh, 100%, man. I wouldn't blame them. But let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit, and we'll talk more about what you did, when you decided to go ahead and call it. What made you decide to go ahead and say, all right, enough's enough. Time to retire.
Yeah, so my next transition actually plays into that answer there. So when I left Corpus Christi in South Texas, I went to Quantico and returned to the academy, this time as a boss, and I was in charge of most in-service training at the DEA Academy, and I actually got to start our leadership and development training unit.
Wow.
We had leadership classes in the in-service unit, and I didn't understand why we weren't just having those isolated and working more on the development of our workforce. And thankfully I had great bosses and who listened to that concept, and they agreed. And so we started the leadership and development training unit, which still stands today and serves DEA and all the employees, not just the agents, but the diversion investigators, chemists, intelligence analysts, all our admin staff. So, well over 10,000 people. And so I'm really proud of that. But that's when I'd already gotten a taste for teaching and training and speaking. Just throughout my career, I was always that person that, would volunteer to do a red ribbon at a high or at an elementary school, or the Rotary Club needed somebody, or something. But now I'm at Quantico, and I'm really just deep into that world, and just fell in love with it. And I knew that I wanted to make that part of my next chapter in life. So I had the opportunity to leave Quantico in 2020 and return to Missouri, where I would become the resident agent in charge, which is the office head of the Springfield, Missouri office. And I'd run the operations in the 25 counties in Southwest Missouri. And I did that. And I tell you, I had a great office, great people, great relationships with all the law enforcement agencies in the area. But I was just missing that one piece that I had gotten at Quantico and throughout my career, which was the training and the teaching part. So I was when I hit 50 years old, I was at full retirement age for a pretty good government pension, and made the decision that I'm just going to walk away from a really good position and start something, start a new chapter in my life, really. And that's what I did. I started Eagle 6 training to do speaking and training and consulting services. And really, I wanted to get more into the business world, which I am slowly getting into. But most of my contacts throughout my entire life have been law enforcement. So I'm doing quite a bit with law enforcement, but I definitely have an interest in doing more with business as well, and that part of that part of the world. So that's what I initially set off to do, and things have been good. And that led on, if you want me to continue to talk, but that led on to an opportunity to work for a risk center. So there are regional information sharing system. It's a non-for-profit DOJ-funded system that supports law enforcement across the U.S. And there's 6 of these centers in the United States, and each center represents, or I should say, is responsible for handling, a geographical region of the country.
Good.
One of them here is in Missouri, and it handles 9 states. And I initially contacted them. I knew the executive director, a great guy, as really just looking for venues, looking for places to bring my training to, and an opportunity came to work for them part-time as a training coordinator. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. I can work part-time for them, and then in the other 41 states, I can do my own thing. And then that led into me working full-time for them. Which is where I am now.
You can just see how that was happening.
Yeah, the executive director here, he is I'm sorry,
no, you're good, man.
He put that on vibrate. He's a pretty good persuader. So now I still do I serve them in the 9 states that we work in, but I still continue to do my own thing in the other 41 states. So I just sleep less. And then ultimately that led into to my work with fentanyl and eventual creation of a nonprofit organization that I call Only2mg. And I'm the executive director, and our entire board of directors is made up of retired DEA agents. And our mission is to educate folks about illicit drug use, specifically fentanyl. And Only2mg is representative of what or how much fentanyl it takes to kill a person. Only 2 milligrams is what we consider a lethal dose. Only a couple granules of salt or sand. Mm. So yeah, and in a nutshell, that's kind of what happened post DEA. I started Eagle 6 training, went to work for a risk center called MOCIC, ended up going full time with them, and then I started my own nonprofit organization. So I'm a lot busier than I ever have been in my life. But I still don't feel like I'm working. I still feel like I'm retired. And if I ever wake up one day and feel like it's just too much, or that I am working, then I'll make a change. But right now, I really feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do at this point in my life.
That's outstanding, man. I mean, there's nothing better though. I mean, especially when you go to retire, a lot of people feel like they've probably lost, they just get disconnected or lose their sense of purpose, all those kind of things. So at least you found a way to stay kind of connected, right? In a faucet that you feel good with, and you can wake up every morning and say, I love what I'm doing. I mean, that's a great thing.
Yeah. And law enforcement, military as well. People think, well, I carried a gun for the last 20 years. Now what am I capable of doing? I tell you what, I'd hire someone from the military or in law enforcement any day of the week, because there's so much that is applicable into almost any industry.
100%.
The crisis management, the risk mitigation, the working with people, the liaison skills. I mean, the relationship building. I mean, it all just amplifies really when you're in a career like law enforcement or the military. And I think a lot of people don't see that. I think they're a little bit short-sighted when it comes to how do they sell those skills when they leave that profession they've been a part of for so long. And the training teaching part was also something that I just felt was something that the DEA and my experience in law enforcement really gave me that foundation and that experience and that background. And now it's my job, hopefully take that to another level and be successful doing it.
Well, that's the great part. We always need educators. We need advocates. We need people that have the knowledge that to at least carry that, pass the torch on to others, especially when you get the opportunity to kind of implement more of things that you don't like, right? You could change those kind of things. It sounds like you worked into a level that you probably had a little bit more dealings with things that you can maybe have a little bit your hands on, where you can change it, unless your hands were tied. Sometimes that happens too, right? They're always like, here's the cookie cutter thing. You follow this instruction. Don't get out the damn way. There's always that too. But Either way, when you get to a certain level, you do have more of at least a fight in the battle, at least saying, hey, I'm seeing this is kind of messed up, right? It's either shut up, just keep going that way, or how can you fix it, right?
Yeah, be part of the solution, right?
Yeah, instead of problem, I think a lot of people are, but but let's get more into it, the Eagle 6 training.
Yeah.
Kind of talk more, let us know more about that, what it is, and let's plug it away, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, so the big passion there is leadership. I mean, we're involved in other aspects of consulting as well, but leadership is I have two weird passions. I have leadership and fentanyl. They couldn't be more separate, right?
Yeah.
But the leadership is in fact, I'm going to Kansas City tomorrow and doing a 4-hour class up there on leadership. And my premise for leadership is very basic. I've read a lot of books on leadership and been through a lot of training on leadership. And I got to tell you, I'm not someone who wants to go in and teach you concepts. I'm going to try to go in there and teach you some common sense. I have 3 ingredients of leadership. One is that it's intentional. One of that it's impactful. And the other one the last one is that it starts with yourself. And I don't, unless you want me to, I don't have to go deep into each of them. But the first one,
let it go away, bro.
Let it rip. A lot of we throw the word leader around kind of willy-nilly, like, hey, he's a leader in the organization, he's a political leader, he's a military leader. Let me tell you, you got to earn that title for me. Because you have stripes, or because you have a business card that has a different title on it, or there's a name on top of your door. That's great, and I'm and I'll respect you for that, but it doesn't make you a leader. Being a leader is very intentional. There's a choice there. So we dive deeper into that in the training and in our discussions, and then we talk about the fact that it's impactful. So if you take one of those positions of authority and you don't purposely try to be a leader, you can have a very profound impact on your folks. The things you do, the things you don't do, the things you say, the things you don't say, everything really makes a difference on the impact you have on an organization. And we know through a lot of research. I mean, look at Gallup does a poll every year called State of the American Workforce, and if you really dive deep into that, they say that about 70%, at least 70% of a person's effectiveness at work, or I'm sorry, engagement at work, is dependent upon his or her management. I mean, that's a pretty significant amount. I'd actually argue that it's higher than that. It really makes a difference what you do and don't do in an organization. So you got to be purposeful. You got to want to be a leader, and then you have to understand the impact that you're going to make on the people that you're very fortunate enough to serve. And then the last one, like I said, is really leadership starts with yourself. If you're not willing to look in the mirror and say, hey, what can I work on? Then how are you expected to ever help anyone else and inspire anyone else? It's like if you fly in an airplane with that safety briefing they give you, if the cabin pressure loses, or if the cabin loses pressure, the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling. Put your own mask on before you help anyone else. And of course, it's extreme in that situation because you could die if you don't put the mask on. But it's the same. Right. It's really the same principle. I mean, how am I going to help you? How am I going to inspire you if I'm not willing to look in the mirror and figure out what's wrong with me and constantly work on myself? Because that's what leaders should do, right? They should inspire people. They should make people better and work towards that vision, that why. What is our organization, or what is our group trying to do? What is our team trying to do? And let's all move that path forward towards, whatever that goal is. But I'm going to be a lot more effective doing that if I realize what my problems are, what's preventing me from getting from A to Z efficiently, and let me work on that, and that's going to help me, work with others, like I said, who are entrusted under my supervision. So that's in a nutshell. That's what really pretty much a lot of the leadership training I do is about. It's very simple. It's very common sense orientated. I'm not really a big into the theories and things like that, and no disrespect for the folks who are or who have written books about this stuff, but This isn't rocket science when you really think about it. I mean, if you can read a leadership book from 100 years ago, and you can read one that written yesterday, and they're all saying pretty much the same things. We all know how to, if I asked you right now to think about the traits of a person that you worked for that you consider a leader, someone that you respected, past or present, the traits that you give me are going to be the same traits that I've heard from folks that work at McDonald's or Verizon.
Right. Yep.
And there's no special trait there. They're all the same, good communicator, someone who's transparent, someone who's fair and consistent. I mean, I hear the same things over and over, and that's good. And then if I ask you, tell me about a bad boss you worked for, someone that was very toxic, and again, that's the things you tell me are the same things I've heard from other organizations, military, law enforcement, to private sector, whatever. And so knowing what those bad things are, if you're in a position of authority, if you have rank on your shoulder, those are things to avoid, because how they make you feel, right? None of us want to work for a bad leader, a toxic boss, or I'm sorry, bad boss or a toxic person.
Right.
So there we go again. I said leader when I shouldn't have. So we always say that word, and we really,
it's sure. Yeah, man. I mean, it's inbred into our head, I think, so
it is. And so that's the basics. That's the basics of a lot of what we do. We really focus a lot of our discussions around that. Now we'll expand off that. If the client wants to talk more about resiliency or crisis management, or whatever their needs are, we'll take those basic principles and we'll make them more applicable or gear them towards more of what the client wants. Happy to do that. We have experience in doing quite a bit of that. But that's really the basis. I mean, and I make there's no secret there. There's no special ingredient. I mean, I'm very transparent about that, and I think it works. I love facilitating conversations with people and having these conversations. There's, like I said, we're not gonna share theories. We're just gonna share our experiences and common sense, and I think that really resonates with people. And I have found personally that people like talking about this stuff. They really like.
Right.
Talking about the experience they've had with good leaders and bad bosses.
It's a conversation you don't have often, right? So it is kind of nice when you get to have that conversation,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's been a struggle too, is getting into organizations, that brings, COVID was a killer when it comes to training. I've seen that firsthand in law enforcement. Law enforcement, you need, depending on what state you live in, you need so many hours every year. Well, with COVID, we introduced online training, and I'm not opposed to online training, but the problem is because
different.
It's different. It becomes a check the box. So,
yeah,
I live in Missouri, and in Missouri, these officers need 24 hours a year. So I've had a lot of chiefs and sheriffs tell me that, hey, I can get my officers online and I can get them 24 hours like this. I'm like, yeah, but what are they learning? And I've had some tell me we don't really care because they just need their 24 hours. It's check the box.
Yep.
And it's a disservice to our folks.
It's a waste. It's a waste in general, right? I mean, because no one's getting anything out of anything. It just becomes a check the box.
And I get that organizations, all of us, like you said, the military, the people going in the military, the numbers are lower. Same with law enforcement, private sectors, always also looking for the best talent out there and struggling. So, you can't always afford to send folks to a day or 2 days or 3 days of training. I get that, but you also got to, there's got to be a balance there, though. You're a CEO or you're a boss in an organization. You need to figure out how to take care of your people. Another thing, a lot of folks think people quit and job hop because of better opportunities. That's not all necessarily the truth. I'm not saying that people aren't leaving for better opportunities, but a lot of people are leaving because they think the grass is going to be a little bit greener, right? They're not being developed. They're not having an opportunity to thrive in the organizations they are. So they're looking for that. And I've met people who actually make less in the organizations they work in and aren't looking to hop and make a little bit more here or there because they're taken care of, not just financially, but they understand what they're doing, the mission, the culture. They really bought into it. So yeah, they can make a couple more dollars down the street, but they feel safe where they are. And I think training can be a part of that. Is it the only solution? No, absolutely not. I'm not naive to think that you're going to bring trainers in like me and everyone's going to be happy. But I think it goes towards the overall culture of an organization when you tell your folks that, hey, I care about you. I want to develop you. I want to see all of you run this company one day. And here are the things I'm going to do to prove that. I'm going to start building this psychologically safe environment that has training, that has development, that has these opportunities to let you be the best you can be in this organization. I love working in organizations like that and teams like that. And I think all of us do. I think that's something that, when you climb the ladder in any organization, military or private sector, you got to just constantly think about that.
Well, you know what? It's, with leaders, right? You have the leaders that are good leaders that look out for their people and want to see their people succeed them, right?
Yes.
But then you have those other leaders that are like, I don't want this fucking dude. Like, I don't want him to outdo me. And you have those kind of suppressive leaders that don't really give the opportunity because they look at everybody as a threat.
I call them bosses. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's because to me, a great leader is someone that strives for their people to be even better than themselves. Right.
100%.
We want to give a better product. I would believe anybody that's a teacher, right, would want their students to outshine them at some point in time and learn more and be better and just so you could look back and say, wow, I taught that kid and now they're blossoming and they're outdoing me now, right? And that would be a great thing, right?
I love that, right? It is, and I wish more folks would see that, and it's a great thing. There's an old, and I don't remember the word for word, but there's an old Greek proverb where it talks about, planting seeds for trees where you'll never get to enjoy the shade from those. And I really truly believe in that. I wrote a blog on that early on after I retired. I really truly believe in that. If you got to make the organization better than you ever did for yourself or your time here. I mean, that's your job. If you volunteered, no one puts a gun to your head and says you're going to be the corporal or the sergeant or the lieutenant or captain or general or whatever title you are in any organization you work in. I mean, those are, let's face it, you're volunteering really for those positions. You're competing for those positions, but no one's forcing you to do that. So if you're gonna be in those positions, then why you have a responsibility to make the people that you're very lucky and fortunate enough to lead better. I couldn't agree with you.
They're a reflection of you. They're a reflection of you anyways, right? And they're the ones that are going to get you your bonuses and your all the checking the boxes for you, right? I mean, I'm trying to teach my kids now. Like, I feel like being a leader is going to be low-hanging fruit for these kids, some of them, right? Because a lot of people are looking for other people to lead them and looking for them to make decisions for them. We're a lot of these kids are too afraid to go in and lead the way. They want to follow everybody, and that just seems to be the general thing that I'm seeing kind of in my kids' era. And I'm just like, what is opportunity for you guys to be a shine? And you will be able to go up and be the leader, the CEOs and stuff like that, because a lot of these kids don't want that,
I agree. I think some of those kids feel that way because we haven't allowed them to fail in life.
Yeah, we try to coddle them or cushion their falls. We don't let them, get that smack.
Really, and that's and I'm not saying we shouldn't give trophies and things like that, but should we? Is there a trophy for last place? The only time you're ever going to get that is when you're playing soccer and you're 6 years old. You're not going to, hey, congratulations, you didn't get this promotion, but here's a trophy. I mean, that's never going to happen any other time in your life. So we went through an entire generation where we conditioned kids to not fail. And not only that, when they did fail, we as parents would attack the folks, look at the school.
Someone else's fault. Someone else's fault.
my
Yeah.
kid got a C's because this teacher's tough and he
Right.
grades too hard, and now I'm going to go talk to the administrator. And I'm not saying those things don't happen. Obviously, nothing's 100%, but and there are people out there who shouldn't be teachers, but that's not really the point of what I'm saying. I mean, you understand that
No.
the fact we coddled folks. We said you're not going to fail. We're not going to let you fail. And by the way, if someone says you failed, we're going to attack them. And what in-service did we do to this entire generation? And I think for at least some of the kids, I can't speak for all of them, I think that's a reason why they don't want to go into these positions.
And don't worry, as the older generation, we're gonna feel it. We're gonna feel the outcome of it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because unfortunately I went through a divorce. I had 2 kids with my ex-wife. My son, he just was always against rules and everything. I was the more hold him accountable, where his mother was more like, God, it's the teacher's fault. It's the teacher's fault. Well, now he's 18 years old, and we haven't moved from that mindset, right? So we're in troubled waters as he's entering adulthood sometimes, and it's like it's because he's always had an excuse or this or the other. He's never really even been able to finish anything he starts, right? Anything he goes into, things that he wants to do, he'll find a reason not to like it, or something to blame as to why he's going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And so now it's playing into, well, hey, dude, you're getting ready to be adult. You got to learn to finish something.
Yeah, we're seeing that too much. Where finish something and not get discouraged. And the moment they get discouraged, they have to figure out a way out of it. And
they want to run.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're seeing that so much in this generation. And that really plays into, the Only2mg and the fentanyl part, is because a lot of these kids, unfortunately, when they do struggle and they don't see success in their life, they'll turn to other things that are dangerous for them, like drugs and alcohol, and not all kids, obviously. But yeah,
we'll go ahead and talk more about Only2mg as a matter of fact. That's a good transition. Perfect. Love it.
Yes. So I actually was working on it, or not working on it. I actually was presenting a long narcotics class. I mean, from developing and handling informants to conducting surveillance to report writing. I mean, it was multiple days, had everything in there, and we were doing some basic drug 101. And someone said, hey, you have a lot of knowledge on opioids, specifically fentanyl. Why don't you kind of take that out, filter that out, and just put something together for that? So I did, and it went really well. And then it just took off. I mean, I had developed a 2-hour presentation, and then before long, it went to 2.5 hours, and then 3 hours, and then 3.5 hours. And right now it's at 4. I've done an 8-hour.
Dang.
Yeah, it really just took off. I've done, oh gosh, I don't know, 65, 70 of these presentations across the United States. I've been in 17 states. And then from there, I thought, I really want to expand this some more. I had some other retired DEA agents that were wanting to help. And I said, why don't I start a nonprofit organization? I had no idea what that really meant. And so but I did. I started that and got approval from the IRS for the 501(c)(3) designation. And
beautiful.
And we're still in our infancy stages. Things happened a lot quicker than they thought. I really did not anticipate the IRS returning that for several months, if not a year. So when I got that back almost in record time, according to my attorney, I was like, all right, now what? And
well, you know what, man, it's a huge thing in our country, right?
Oh, yeah, it really is.
And I mean, I'm imagining they want all the help they can get, from whatever level.
Yeah. And it, maybe that's it. That's a good, absolutely could be it. But for whatever the reason, it happened fast. And now I'm really trying to play catch up. And
well, it's like the VA. There's so many veteran nonprofits now, right? There's a lot of veteran nonprofits that are basically cushioning the VA. It's the same thing. There's not enough resources in the government level or anything like that to take care of this. And also, this is still kind of new, right? This is still kind of new to our country. It's not, I wouldn't say new, but it's the epidemic level, that we're starting to see.
Yeah, the number of people dying that we're starting to see has really skyrocketed in the last few years or so. I mean, last year we lost about 107,000 people to drug overdose in this country, and that was a slight decline from 2022 numbers. But to give you an idea of how significant that is, the government, by the way, calls these drug overdoses. I call them drug poisonings. Most people don't want to die from drugs like fentanyl. They don't even know they're getting it.
Sure.
But I think the appropriate terminology is drug poisoning. I think that's certainly a lot more appropriate than drug overdose. But the government calls them drug overdose, and we've been collecting this data since 1968. And if you look at the data from 1968 to the year 2000, there's been about 200,000-ish folks who have died. It's a lot of folks. Okay, we're up to 107,000 people a year. Every 2 years, we exceed what we did the first 32 years of collecting this data. Every 2 years.
Wow.
The only reason it didn't increase this past year is because of a little drug called naloxone, Narcan.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's saving lives. That's countless lives. I mean, I think they estimated that like 22 or 23 million doses of naloxone have been distributed.
Gosh.
Now, we don't know how many are being used.
Sure.
But are being distributed. I mean, millions, and so, you'd hate to think of that number, that 107,000 number without naloxone, how out of control it would be. But the big reason that so many people are dying is fentanyl. I mean, we know that about 75,000 people a year are dying because of one drug, the very powerful synthetic opioid that we call fentanyl. And when I do my talks, I always say, hey, what's 75,000 people? Because I always have trouble wrapping my head around a number. So if you like football, if you like the NFL, most NFL stadiums are about 70 to 80,000 people. So, here in Missouri, Arrowhead Stadium, the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, my wife likes the dang Chiefs now because of Taylor Swift. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, fits 76,000 people. So, I always challenge people. I said, next time you're at a game or watching a game, look around. I said, every single seat in that stadium is gone in 1 year because of one drug. That's how impactful it is. It's had a profound impact. And now this drug is littered throughout our drug supply. It got into the drugs through heroin. We started noticeably seeing it around the 2012 time period. And then it just took over heroin. Good luck finding heroin anymore. I mean, it's still out there, but it's very difficult to find in the United States. And now we see it more in cocaine. I think last year we saw it in 40% of all cocaine seizures. We saw it in,
wow.
21, 22% of all methamphetamine seizures. I mean, it's littered our entire drug supply. And now we have a drug that our kids did not, I'm sorry, that we have a drug that when we were our kids' age, we didn't have.
Yeah.
When you and I are in high school, we didn't have to worry about fentanyl. These kids have to now. And the reason I mention that is because statistically speaking, if you're going to try drugs, you're probably going to be a teenager. I mean, I know there's some exceptions. Some people, I never used drugs. But if you did, you more than likely were a teenager.
Right.
Well, you know what? The teenagers now, they have a drug that we didn't have. They have a drug that our grandparents didn't have. This is a drug that'll kill them the first time they use it. And that's really a big reason why we had 107 people die last year, poisoned last year, is because they have a drug that's been introduced into all of our drug supply, and it is killing people unbeknownst to them. It's tasteless, it's odorless, and like I said, only 2 milligrams is enough to kill you.
And it's like a liquid or something, liquid form, or it starts off liquid form, or?
Well, it's typically in a powder form. You can make it
okay.
into a liquid form, but most of what we see is in the pills or just a powder itself. And then to give you an idea how, I don't have one with me right now, but if you had a sugar packet,
sure,
a sugar packet is a gram. So a gram is 1,000 milligrams. So if 2 milligrams is a deadly dose, that one sugar packet is 500 deadly doses. So every time I talk to folks, usually kids, I always pull out a sugar packet and I say, look, one little sugar packet. And then I actually put it in a vial And I pass that vial around the room. I say, that is enough to kill 500 people. So now imagine that when I sprinkle that into pills, when I sprinkle that into heroin, I sprinkle that into cocaine, when I sprinkle that into methamphetamine. And the pills are the biggest problem for the kids. I mean, they think they're getting Adderall or Percocet or Xanax or whatever they're looking for. And if it's typically a counterfeit, and that's where a lot of this illicit fentanyl is really doing a lot of its impact, at least to the kids, is through the pills, because we've conditioned people to take pills for everything. Go to a doctor and he or she is going to give you a pill and it's going to make you feel better. And our kids are growing up with that thought process, and they're self-medicating themselves at record levels for stress and anxiety and these different coping mechanisms, or because of real trauma or whatever. And they're going to the streets, or they're going to social media, and they're getting these counterfeit pills, and they're getting a drug that can get into this supply so easily, and that's where I bring back the 500 deadly doses in that one little sugar packet.
Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, here, local to me, there was a little girl that went to go to her mom's house, and she ingested a little thing on the floor, and it was fentanyl, and she's they couldn't save her from it. And now one parent's going to jail probably for the rest of her life, and another parent has to live with the death of their daughter. It's a sad situation, and it's scary to the fact that even kids going out and trick-or-treating nowadays, you're like, hey, let's check your candy. I mean, and some people don't even let their kids go trick-or-treating anymore, right? I mean, I know here local to me, it's become a real big problem here in California, and in our community. And I know to the fact, like I said, people are scared to let their kids, even take a snack from another kid at class, right? Because we've heard of things happening in an elementary school. It's just crazy.
It really has changed so much. I mean, I say it all the time, but the whole drug landscape has changed because of this one drug. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before, and there's a lot of kids out there who are dying because of first-time drug use, or they'll buy they'll buy what they think is a Percocet online, and they'll split it in half, and you're okay from your half, but I've died from taking my half, and it really does question everything. These kids, the people they're around, the things that they're around, and it just changed everything. It makes it really difficult, and it scares people, as it should. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is just raise that awareness. I always tell kids, parents always look at me strange when I say this, but I say, I'm not here to tell you not to say no to drugs. I want you to say no to drugs.
Right.
Here's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to give you some information. And you're going to be in a situation in your life where I'm hoping that you're going to use this information and make a good choice. And to me, a good choice is saying no. But we know just telling kids not to say no doesn't work. You got to give them that reasons. You got to tell them why. So in my perspective, it's about empowering them. Look, here's a sugar packet. If this were fentanyl, here's 500 deadly doses. Now imagine if I sprinkled this into pills, if I sprinkled in this other drugs that you're trying. One time can kill you. So empowering them to make these better choices. I think we ought to do that with not just drugs, but everything that they're facing in life.
Right.
That's our approach to the drug education, is empowering people, especially young people, to make intelligent decisions based on facts. And we have to talk to kids. We do. One thing I've learned, it's really frustrating, is a lot of parents don't want to hear this message. They head in the sand. I can tell you a number of stories where I've had just very, very few parents show up to presentations, and good people. They just don't want to hear it. They think out of sight, out of mind.
It's never going to happen to me.
Yeah. Who do you think's giving this information to our kids if we're not?
Right.
The traffickers are, the social media, their idiot friends are. There's someone out there giving them information.
That's street cred.
Yeah. So I mean, why wouldn't we give them accurate information to in all aspects of life, to go out there? Are they still going to make some bad decisions? Yeah, sometimes we do. But
I like the way that you present it, though. Don't because the thing about our weird human nature is you tell someone no, and they have that urge to really want to do it after you
Why?
tell them no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a lot better if you actually give them the actual reason as to why instead of just saying no, right? Like the reason why I'm telling you no is because if you take even a small percent of this, you could possibly lose your life. Right? I mean, and I know that sounds
Yes.
really morbid, but that's the reality
It
of
is the
things.
truth.
And we got to get to that hard. The truth of the matter is, hey, if you drink and drive, you could go slam into a pole and lose your life. I mean, it's facts. You know, and, it's happened enough
You
to
can bring that
be
yeah.
clear and present, problem.
Correct, absolutely, and you can bring that to any argument. We were talking about leadership earlier. I mean, I've had so many bosses tell me that people better listen to me because I got rank, and I
Right.
and I don't need they don't I don't need to tell them why.
Yeah.
My why is because I'm the lieutenant or whatever. Do you know how much further? I mean, think about your own life or career. I mean, or listeners, whoever. If you take just a couple minutes to say, "Hey, this is why we're going to do this." Now, I'm the boss, and we're going to do it because I'm the boss. But this is why I'm making this decision.
Yep.
That is huge, and it's the same principle, like you're saying with the drugs. I mean, it's not just don't take it, say no. It's here's why, because this will kill you. You know,
Yeah. I mean, as parents, a lot of us, we hate that we got to explain things to our kid. Well, they should just listen, right? Because I'm their dad. It
yeah, the
does
kids
help.
are
It
time.
does help giving them a little bit of an education, right? And giving them some tools or some knowledge in instead of he said just don't cross the street. Why? There's nothing wrong right now. Well, because at certain times you could get hit and killed by the
Yeah,
car. You know what I mean? Just little simple things. I know that I've been guilty as a parent. A young parent coming out of the Marine Corps is just like, if I give you direction, you just do it. Because if you don't do it, you could die. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're living life over here like that, right? But I mean, I was doing that because that's just the way my mind was working until I finally had to slow down and say, hey, my kids didn't go through boot camp. They never experienced any kind of combat. They don't realize, these things that I do. I had to step back and say, hey, maybe giving them a little bit of explanation as to why things are the way they were. Because also, when you don't explain yourself in certain situations, people could take things however they want, right? I mean, uh, perception isn't always reality, but it is reality to the person that is perceiving it. So um, sometimes we got to get past that perception and give them a reason, right? Like there's certain things in life we got to probably be a little better at explaining ourselves. So then people can relate and say, oh, no shit, I get it. That's why you do that.
yeah.
I never knew that, right? Like, I mean, it's just weird how much more it goes when you kind of give them that X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and there are situations where it needs to be urgent. Like you said, you're in a war zone. Do it now, and there's
Sure.
no why,
Or yeah,
obviously. But
correct.
you're talking to kids about drugs or alcohol or sex or whatever it is. You have the luxury of being able to pause and give that reason and let them understand the rationale behind your decision.
Right.
And that is huge. And we know through a lot of research that actually does work. So that's the approach. And I hope I'm being effective. I hope that kids are listening. I've had some kids come up to me after presentations and have found me after my presentations and have told me told me very personal things about their lives and some of the choices they've made and their path going forward, which I hopefully is going to be better than their previous paths. So that makes me feel good because I feel like it's resonated with some of those folks, but that's important. I think it's important for all of us to sometimes sit back and like you said, just pause and give that reason.
Well, one of the things that we talked about a good leader is transparency, right? And
Yeah.
that's just, and
Oh,
part of that is just being transparent. You know,
yeah.
transparency goes a long ways and it builds a lot of trust in people, right?
Yeah.
Because not only are you talking the talk, you're walking the walk. and that goes a long ways for people, right? I think that people are they do like to hear the words, but I think they want to see the action. Like for me, I want to, someone can sell themselves to you even in the interview, right? Then you go and the fool comes on the first day of the job sleeping and sluggish, like, oh,
Yeah.
what happened to
What's
this
gonna hurt?
motivator? What happened to this motivator I just got done
Yeah.
interviewing, right?
Yeah.
Like now the dude's a slug. So action is very important. So I think that comes with transparency, because when you're transparent, you're saying what and you're doing what you're saying, type of
You,
deals.
when I mentioned earlier, when I ask folks to give me characteristics of a good leader, I don't care where I am. I always hear transparent, and I typically hear that's what you just said there. Someone whose actions speak louder than their words.
Yep.
It's not about saying, it's about doing. And I hear that I've heard that from CEOs, and I've heard that from brand new folks in organizations who, 2 days in don't even know where all the doors are. I mean, it's the same. We all want the same things, and it's so important to us. And you nailed it on the head there. So,
well, the same people holding us accountable, all eyes are on them mostly, and we're typically way more critical of our leaders too, right? And we're watching all their moves. Like,
yeah.
well, he just went left when he said he was going right. That son of a bitch, we're very critical of our leaders a lot of times too. So when you're at that leadership, it is very important to realize all those eyes that you're a leader of are on you, right? And you got to perform and do. If you want them to be badass, you got to be 10 times more badass, right? In a way, when they're watching you, they're seeing you, and they're hearing you. Show them 100. If you're wishy-washy, they're not going to trust you. Yeah. You're not going to build that trust, and then they're probably not going to go all out for you. They're not probably going to give you that great 100% product that you can get out of people, right? And morale starts to dip, and we all know when morale dips,
yeah.
Productivity dips, and everything else, efficiency, all those kind of things start to go down with it. So it's important, like I said, lead by example. I've always been told, don't lead from the front, but lead from the rear, and that way you're the one pushing everyone, and you're not the one just saying, come on,
yeah,
leaving people behind.
Yeah. And the same principles are applicable to really anyone. And like I said, talking to the kids, talking to, a subordinate or someone, I almost hate saying that word, someone who works for you or they're just applicable to all levels. And it's so simple, right? I mean, everything we've talked about, I mean, we didn't just build a rocket. I mean, we're talking about things that make us feel better and things that work and make us more efficient.
But we like to complicate things, bro. Like, I mean, it does, right? We got to have drama. We got to have complications. Yeah. I don't understand it. Like the human desires are kind of crazy, where we really take something so simple sometimes and complicate it. We just I don't know why it likes to be that way, but I think some people live for that. But Brian, I appreciate you coming on, man. I really loved our discussion. I loved everything you've talked about. I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything that you would like to share with us before we leave that you may have forgot to share, or any words of wisdom?
Yeah, take care of people. I love doing the speaking and the training, and but the fentanyl thing has given me a whole different sense of accomplishment and purpose. And I got into law enforcement, as silly as it might sound, is to really try to make a difference and help people. And I loved the career, and I loved what I did, and I wasn't sure, like you said, when I left, what my purpose was going to be and how I was going to make all that work. But I did believe in myself, and I believed in, my ability to open a new chapter and be successful in my life. And then when I found this fentanyl thing, it kind of sounds weird saying it like that, but you know what I mean? When I got into more of the developing the fentanyl training and now the Only2mg LLC or nonprofit, it's about helping people. And I think we all have a duty to figure out what kind of impact we can have on this world. Like we said, whether it's your organization or your team you're on or whatever, I mean, how can you make things better? How can you propel the people around you to be better than you? And I hope I'm doing that with this. I hope, I hope I'm making a difference. I've had a lot of good success stories. I train Narcan, the naloxone I talked about. I just had an officer not too long ago save a life with the Narcan that I gave her. Just things like that make me feel good and really intensify, if that's the appropriate word, what I'm doing and my sense of purpose and trying to make a difference in this world. But no, that's me in a nutshell. I appreciate your time or the interview and the time to do this, and happy to have had this conversation with you.
Absolutely, brother. And if you're ever wondering if you're making a difference, you absolutely are. We need educators in this world. We need people to continue, like I said, bringing awareness, right? There can never be enough, because even when you're out there, you're still not hitting 100% of the population, right? So the more that we can get people to understand this and get behind you. I saw that on, in Eagle 6 training, you have over 60 years worth of experience and stuff like that. I mean, just, having those kind of people out there, it's going to make a difference in our world, because just planting a seed in someone's brain is good enough. Putting that seed there, because then it's going to at least grow into something, and how they treat it and stuff like that is up to them. But I appreciate you, Brian, and thank you so much. And we'll be in touch, man. I'll be adding your stuff onto my website as well. I'll put your nonprofit in there. I'll also add Eagle 6 training on there as well. So that way it's just another place where people can go in and go check it out.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to work with anyone. So that's great. I appreciate that support and
hey, brother. And also, if you ever need, want to come on and you want to talk about some more stuff and you got some other things going on, always have a seat here. Always.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much, Brian.
Hey, thank you, brother. Have a great one, and we'll see you later. All right, friends and fam. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for another great interview. I really enjoyed that conversation. The epidemic is huge here in California with fentanyl. And, we do need more leaders out there as well. I think that we're starting to live in a world of everybody's looking at people to lead them. So we need as many leaders out there as we can get, especially this time in the world. But hope you guys have an amazing day out there. Remember how we say, don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see y'all. Urgh.